Hello and welcome to our show Midwest Weekly, starring myself, Hairwiz, and my co-host CLT. We are here to give you a breakdown of the finals matchups in the Midwest Sweat League of the Summer League 2024. With that being said, why don't we go ahead and dive into what was a really good series. Even though it ended in 3, it certainly had a lot of fun moments. And we'll start off with Game 1. And CLT, if you'd like to lead us off with the draft.
Yeah. We had Boomers and Scorch making it through the brackets and getting to the finals here. With Boomer squad choosing, I think they won the coin toss and chose blue side. But they ended up B1ing Corky, which everybody knows that he's kind of out of that pro play jail he was in. Got buffed quite a bit this patch. Was looking pretty strong with a lot of early game like lethality builds. Has still scaled well. Scorch on the other side then answered with Syndra Nami, which we both have seen. I think even you played against one of those where it was a good bot lane combo. Nami E really amplifies a lot of Syndra's damage. Boomers went with a really good generic couple picks with Skarner, Rakan. Skarner, I think, was the most played in playoffs. If not, he was second to Mumu. And then Scorch kind of brought out the Xin Zhao, which we haven't seen too much of. So that was interesting. Xin Zhao with, I wouldn't consider Nami like that deep of an enchanter, but she does help out a little bit. And Xin Zhao typically loves like one or two full enchanter comps. Then we went through the second ban phase, and then you see Boomer squad rounding out with Lilia Caitlyn to Scorch's Ziggs Yone. The Ziggs pick was interesting. I think both me and you were kind of questioning which one was going mid. And it turned out that Ziggs went mid instead of bot lane, which I could see Ziggs or Syndra both being able to kind of do decent in the Corki. Ziggs is more poker line, to where Syndra I think can actually push him back and threaten some kill potential. But with Ziggs going mid, I thought that was fairly easy. Like, it was much more gankable for Lilia compared to Syndra. And also on that note, like with Lilia coming out for Boomer squad, it was Skarner top, which is something we haven't seen. I don't really think we've seen all split. Do you remember a Skarner top game?
Not off the top of my head, I do not.
Yeah, I think it might have been like week 1, week 2, where we seen Skarner top, but it was mainly a jungle pick. I know One Punch Zach really loved the Skarner, as well as a lot of other junglers. So
Yeah, I think the Skarner top tech kind of fell off because they got rid of that, like, I don't want to call it really a bug necessary, but it kind of was, where he do this weird, like, E backwards thing, so he catch you off guard with E. Like, he's actually in front of you, but he's able to cast it to where he immediately sends you backwards instead of forwards. And so he was able to E you under turret and then just alt you, and it was like free kills. On top of the fact that his W Q trading pattern was just kind of obnoxious to deal with and really, really strong. So they got rid of that ability, and then I think they nerfed, I think, his W or something to deal with the Skarner lane specifically, if I remember correctly. And so that's why we stopped seeing it top, and it went back to just majority being a jungler. But since they didn't really impact the jungle as much with those changes, it still stayed a very, very strong pick. And we've seen it in Worlds, and of course we've definitely seen it in the league. It's continuously having a high pick rate no matter where it's at the moment, and I expect by the time we're talking about the next split, Skarner will not be as impactful. I'm sure he'll get some more nerfs and changes that'll make it a more balanced champion to deal with.
yeah, I think making his kill a lot more like scaling skewed. In his early game weaker, the jungle definitely like suits him a little bit better.
Yeah.
Compared to that, but yeah, Skarner, that kit's insane. They're gonna have a fun time trying to keep that balanced.
Yeah. Good luck. As far as the games go, like game 1 here, let's kind of dive into it. we did have a lot of early action in this game. Like we had that first gank there on like the 5 minute mark, which ended up being just a single kill for Rusty, and Poke Archer ended up kind of going, for a 2-for-1 special. Instead of getting the 2-for-1 special, he got the 0-for-nothing special because both members were able to walk away, and then it kind of stayed back and forth for a bit. What was kind of like the key moments to you in this game that kind of broke it open?
I felt like in the early game, Scorch did really well. I'm sorry, not Scorch. Yeah, no, sorry, Scorch. Yeah, they did really well, getting some incremental leads through lanes. But then there was a mid game, like a grub fight that ended up going favored for them. And then the one thing that really, really broke it open was there was a dragon fight
Yes.
that Victor, I think, flashed ahead on Skarner and then ended up getting three people with Skarner all, and two of them were backliners.
Yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
he got two. I'm actually showing the clip now. Yeah, it was pretty insane. The fight looked kind of nice for Scorch in the beginning. They were kind of giving a little bit of a pick at the beginning, but then like it just completely broke up. And like you said, I mean, Skarner came in, suppressed two targets, and it was just pretty much over from there. So, and Bori was able to just free fire. Nobody really touched him. And I think Archer had like a 2 or 3 man sleep as well. So it was really clean fight there by the side of Boomer Squad. And there wasn't much for Scorch to do once their big tools were gone. They don't have really consistent DPS, except maybe the Yone there.
yeah, I think having a two mage comp into like a couple of like health stacking frontliners, I thought if those mages didn't get ahead, that it was going to be really, really hard to put out meaningful damage through like Skarner, Lilia, Rakan.
Yeah, but I mean they fought through it well. Like there's another
Oh
point
yeah,
in this game where, and I'm going over it here too. They have a Baron fight where Boomer tries to turn on the Baron, and immediately gets responded by Scorch, and Scorch's able to clean up the fight from all the Baron damage taken. So like there was definitely moments Scorch here just kept fighting, keeping the game close. I mean, I'm looking at this game, 28 minutes in, we're talking about a 50 to 50 gold. It's completely even, 50,000 to 50,000. But I want to say the biggest thing was they just kind of got outscaled. This Corki was just absolutely disgusting. When
yeah.
you talk about it getting buffed, I played against it yesterday. The man walked up to me with Gatling gun level 1 as Leona and just half health me. It was like, what is this, man? And I was like, this doesn't even make sense. So the champion is really, really strong at the moment with these buffs.
Yeah, he hits the early game so hard that it doesn't really like his mid game being a little on the sweet, yeah, weaker side. He just kind of ignores it. Is because it's so insane. Also, like to note, looking back at some of these builds, it was interesting that the double mage comp was the comp that didn't run Tear of the Goddess into like scaling items, to where Skarner had Winter's Approach and Corki went Muramana. So I think scaling for scaling, they did outscale them going into that late game.
Yeah, I mean, and they were on good items. Like, I mean, by the time the game ended, there was both two death caps on, one death cap on each of the mages here. You had, I mean, a total of 1, 2, 3, what, 4 items each. I mean, if you obviously including boots there, but yeah, 4 items each before the end of the game. So it's not that they didn't have the damage, but like Bori just built a Hex Drinker, was not really one-shottable at that point, unless of course Yone got on top of him. But as you saw, Ares just did not get the advantage he really wanted. I mean, he did have some success into Victor Apple Skarner, but it just wasn't meaningful enough. He never got off the ground to where it's a tank versus a fighter matchup, right? So you need to really punish that tank if you want to be as efficient as that tank is, considering the tank doesn't need the items that you do. And that's pretty much what happened. Victor just kind of walked up. I'm here. I click R. I've got my Rakan to dash on me, and then the rest of the DPS damage just do that. Caitlyn, Corki, fire down, rain hell. So it was definitely one of those games where I feel like instead of going for the Ziggs pick here, I feel it'd been better to just give Boonstra a standard 80 carry and maybe just send the Syndra mid and ban the Ziggs. Gotta look back at the bans here. What were the first 3 bans? Senna, Nyla,
Nocturne.
and Nocturne. Okay. So yeah, I think we just dropped the Nyla ban here because Boonstra does play Caitlyn. We can take Caitlyn, right? Like if like when I say we, I'm taking it as like if I were in that situation, right? We take Caitlyn and then we go ahead and we ban the Ziggs and just say, hey, you do what you want to do from there. The odds are Bori's not picking Nyla into Caitlyn. It's not a very good matchup. She's just gonna get poked down. And with Calico being a well-known Nami player, that's just more ranged. So the draft will change a bit. Of course, Corki's still going to be a problem in that game, in my opinion. But I think Syndra would fare better than the Ziggs will fare into the matchup, personally. Because Syndra just click R die, right? Like that's basically what happens. And it forces Tang to build a probably a Hexdrinker himself at some point, which could delay some of his power spikes on the Corki.
Well, I just think Syndra flows into that mid game a little bit better than Ziggs, especially like post durability patch, because her being in the mid lane, she gets a few more levels, which means she stacks a little bit quicker. Which I think is where a lot of her power is getting to her max stacks at that like 20-25 minute mark, or even 30 on the later side of it, and still she's hitting hard with true damage. To where, like as you noted, if you look at banning Nyla's not the most blindable champion, especially if you're going into the draft scene like Skarner, Lilia, Rakan. Like if Nyla ever dies in, she insta gets CC'd and popped. So, yeah, I think the Nyla ban was interesting. I know Bori popped off on that against Sad Jellyfish, but that was in like a very favorable Nyla spot. So.
Yeah, and when you're saying Nyla gets popped, you're just saying there's so much CC that if Nyla gets popped, all the CC is rendered useless, right? I want to clarify because you mentioned when you said it. I want to clarify for viewers so they're not thinking you're saying that Nyla is going to get CC'd against the Rakan, Skarner, and Lilia.
Well, she's just
because she's going to be on that team is what I'm saying.
Oh, my apologies. Yeah. Well, even then, like looking the other way, Syndra can push her back. Nami can kind of keep her at arm's length with tidal wave bubbles, and Xin Zhao actually can like brawl with the Nyla a little bit.
Yeah.
So, sorry. Yeah, I got the.
No, you're okay. I want to clarify for the viewers.
No, you're good. I appreciate that.
No, I think on both points would stand, right? If you're the Nyla going into the comp, you not have fun. But if you're the Nyla in that comp, you might be one of the only major damage dealers. Don't get me wrong, Lily is going to do damage, and assuming they still pick the Corki, it's probably okay. But again, draft could have changed. I mean, maybe they send the Corki bot too. Like, there's just so many situations where that draft could have been different based on just a few different changes from Scorch there. But yeah, I mean, you could even try to bait the Nyla pick out, like, and pick something that looks like Nyla would have fun into, and then all of a sudden be like, no, just kidding. But then
there's so many things, especially if you have red side, it's so much easier to like ban the general picks and force Boomer to respond to it, and then you get at least an R4 or R5 pick that is like a hard counter to whatever they pull out.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that's the way I would have definitely played draft if I was in their situation, just because of those champions they banned. The Senna, the Nocturne, and the Nyla, like of those three, when I'm considering things, Senna I understand. Senna is pretty good into what Calico normally plays. Like Senna doesn't really care about enchanters too much. She gets to free farm stacks at that point and just chill out. There's no really threat to killing her. So I understand that ban. The Nocturne ban I could understand in terms of like regardless if you're not used to playing into a top. The strength of the pick can really disrupt team fights, which is something Scorch does a lot. So again, makes sense. But then when I bring up the Nyla, I just don't see the reasoning because it's just a niche pick, even with it being decently strong right now, which I think it is. it's still niche. It's just not something you pull out for fun. It's not a
Yeah.
safe blind pick. It's probably not even a safe, B3 pick if you know, certain things aren't on the table. Like I really feel like Nyla's best when she's later in the draft, most of the time, unless you can guarantee that like the enemy's gonna just draft a certain comp. So like, sure, let's just send it. You know, um, but how do you guarantee that, right? Like, if players are smart, they should obviously have an idea of their plan to play around something like that. Now, there's a chance that maybe Scorch wasn't used to playing into the Nyla, so didn't feel very comfortable with it. That's also a possibility. Uh, but even then, if that's the case, I always say like that's where you just gotta prep for it and plan for it again because the double mage comp is just not gonna win against a double 80 carry comp, in my opinion. Like you're gonna get outscaled, so you have a timer. You can build um, the Seraphs all you want. It isn't gonna matter when Caitlyn and Quirky have 4 or 5 items. Is just one shotting your whole team basically. Because who's the tank on that team? The pseudo tank is the Xin Zhao, and that's it. But once alt is down, he gets popped. So it's kind of it's kind of hard. They were definitely on a timer, and I think that's what we saw at the end of the game. The timer was pretty much running out, and they lost one fight, and the game was over. It was pretty
Yeah.
unfortunate.
Yeah. Agreed.
But that's enough of game one. Why don't we jump into game two draft CLT? And once again, I'll let you take off with that.
Yeah. Let me pull this up real fast because game two, there was definitely a big wild card pick in the form of Blitzcrank. Um, we've seen Scorch, B1, Syndra again, and Boomer Squad responds with Sejuani Zaya, which, I mean, both very respectable picks. Boomer Squad being the team known to flex the Sejuani quite a bit, either top or jungle. Victor's been an absolute menace on the Sejuani. I think he was undefeated on the 4 or 5 times he played it. I could be wrong. He might have had one loss, but definitely an extremely positive win rate on it. Um, Miss Scorch responds with Skarner Nami, and then you see the R3 Blitzcrank, which I thought was a really, really nice pick. If you go double mage bot lane, Blitzcrank applies an immense amount of pressure. Um, but even if you pick if you move the mage mid and pick an 80 carry bot, that's still now two targets to pick from that you can just pick off. So Scorch then ban out some of the mages. We see Oriana and LeBlanc, which I think are two really respectable bans for Scorch. And Boomers gets rid of some of the top laners in Cassante and Yone, which I think are two pretty good top lane answers in the Sejuani for the most part. Um, but then you see the Smolder come out of Scorch. So I was kind of wondering if it was Smolder mid, Smolder bot. But I really like the response from Boomer. They picked like kind of a hard engage angle there, R4, R5 with Jarvan Galio. That I think was a really good answer into Syndra Nami specifically. I know Smolder can get out of the Jarvan ult, but like he doesn't get away fast enough to at least not get hit by the residual Galio ult coming in here. And even then, he's burning his only movement spell, and he still has Sejuani Blitzcrank to worry about. So I thought it was a really, really good response to Smolder. After looking at the draft before we seen how it ended up in game, I thought there was a world where Scorch then like keeps the Syndra bot, puts Smolder mid potentially, because Smolder and the Galio is just free stacks for Smolder. But they ended up putting Smolder bot side, um, which I thought was an interesting play. I think I said it in the cast that I was kind of hoping for kind of an arcane comment like D ring start, because Zaya is traditionally known to be not. She doesn't have fun into like mage or poke matchups, which Smolder can kind of do at the beginning of the game. I know he doesn't really build or itemize towards it, but if you go Mana Flow, Scorch, D Ring, that Smolder W is going to hit really, really hard. Um, but overall, no, Smolder went bot side, Syndra went mid. Syndra can still freely stack on Galio, but Galio can kind of second wind D shield that up and be okay with it. Um, So again, we could have like a decent discussion regarding the draft. That there was a couple of adaptations I felt like could have been a little more optimal, but this game got really exciting really fast, and in the ending, I thought when Smolder hit 225, that was their window to get back in this game.
Yeah. So for me, I mean, if we're gonna, we could talk more about draft before jumping in a game if you'd like you said. Um,
Yeah.
for me, what I wanted to see Scorch do, and I think I mentioned this a couple times during the cast, was to just get away from that Syndra there because, um, one, I feel like Syndra's now just a bait. I think it's just a bait pick here. I think they want to see the Syndra. I think you just get away from it. I understand that Ting, or I'm not sorry, it's not sorry, not Ting. Tom was being, pushed off of certain picks, like with the R being banned. Um, and such. I think they even banned the Yone, considering that could be a flex pick there. Um,
They had four mid bans in this game too: Ari, Aurora, Corki, and then Yone in the second phase.
yeah, it's pretty hardcore. But like, there's no. I mean, I can't say there's no chance that there's no quirky mid there from Tom. I don't think that's fair. He probably plays it. Certainly could easily pull it out with how strong it was. I could imagine it being picked. As well as it's also possible Boomsure could have played a bot. So like, it was the right ban coming out of Boomer there. So I thought their bans were pretty good. But I just think the Syndra is still kind of a bait there. I think there's certainly some other options to consider. The other thing is, if we're going to draft a Smolder comp, we have to have something to allow Smolder to get to the 225 safer. And so what that means for me is just maybe like a higher DPS jungle, to be honest, I think. I think it'd be better there. I also, when was Sejuani picked? First?
Yes, Sejuani was R1.
Okay, with the knowledge. So when did we pick Gwen? Was Gwen R5
Gwen was B5
or
for some reason.
B5? But they picked Sejuani first. So what was R4 then? Like, what was the knowledge on the table? I can't remember. Do you remember?
Sejuani, Zaya, Blitzcrank was R1 through 3, and then they responded with Jarvan
Okay.
R4.
So
So
we
that you're
pretty
showing,
much
yeah,
know at that point that it's a Jarvan jungle. I would argue instead of going Skarner here, maybe Rusty plays something with a little higher DPS and like um more threat in the jungle. Besides Skarner, now I don't remember when Skarner was picked. I'm just considering all on the table, like how the draft would
yeah.
go. But one thing I do know for a fact here is that we definitely don't have to Gwen here. I think we Trundle. Like, this is really funny because I've always like talking about the Trundle, but it's Trundle top, and Trundle top is very strong, and it's a good counter to Sedge. Like, Sedge does not win that lane in any like sense of the word. I'm not familiar with the Gwen Sedge matchup. It looked like it was going pretty back and forth, but like Trundle's not losing that. And if Jarvan comes up with Trundle and Trundle 6, Trundle clicks R on Sedge and just beats over whoever he wants on the head. Like, he's a perfect stat checker for that game there. So I would have loved the Trundle. But yeah, it just feels like we need to allow Boonstra to get to a point to scale better, and I think they didn't have that ability because they're the comp they were going against wanted to play fast, and they could not slow the pacing with something that could battle against it. Like, Skarner is not going to have a fun time against all the CC and damage output coming out of, J4, Galio, and Zaya just alone. Not even including the Blitzcrank. Like, we just ignore the Blitzcrank there. The Blitzcrank was literally just a counter pick knowing that the fish was coming out, and Blitzcrank's really, really good in Tanami. So it was really smart, and he didn't really feast on the Nami in that game like we talked about, but every hook landed on the Nami was either Nami immediately flash afterwards or Nami was dead. So, like, it did exactly the job of the Blitzcrank. It made it so Nami's life was miserable in lane. And he still had multiple hooks even on the dragon. Like, Smolder flying away didn't matter. He still landed hooks. So the Blitzcrank was a great pick, I think, from the side of Boomer Squad. But yeah, to say the least, I don't love Scorch's draft here. I don't think it's bad, but it definitely, again, could have seen something better. But it's always hard. Like, I mean, everything is not so simple, right? Everything's fluid. You're in the moment. You're trying to figure out what to do. Hindsight's 2020. That's always how it goes. But I think that's what I want to see from Scorch's draft. A few change-ups here. So let's go ahead and jump into the game, though. Let's go ahead and let's get into that. Because this game, too, was like you said, it started fast and it pretty much never slowed down. They were a freight train in this game. Boomer Squad, uh, just once they grabbed the wheel and started uh, turning right, left constantly, it was over. Like that's pretty much what happened. Um, we saw Victor Apple having pretty high success into this Gwen um, on the earlier parts of the game, and like I stated before, with the Blitzcrank being able to apply a lot of pressure bot, uh, it was what 4-1 kills at 10 minutes, and then it was just like from that point on, just keep going, pull the trigger, pull the trigger. Nobody was safe. Didn't matter if it was a Skarner. It didn't matter if it was obviously any other member on the side of Scorch. You were going to be dead if they saw you. So
Yeah, yeah. It's this game started off fast, started in favor of Boomers, and I really think they never looked back up until the end. Um, but like you kind of said and alluded to in the draft talk, there was really nothing to create space or threaten to let Smolder get to this mid game. But I think in this series, and this was kind of like the start of the finals MVP run for Bori, but he had a really good like 1v2 outplay in the bot side
yeah,
that just it really started to just keep that freight train going
yeah, it was absolutely
for
disgusting. I mean, like
yeah.
it makes sense
That,
why he got it. He was already 2-1 prior to the fight, but also it's Zaya into Nami Smolder. I don't think they have much kill threat on the Zaya unless you like land the perfect bubble into a wave. you know,
yeah.
Zaya more than likely clicks R, and if she has flash, can just do what she did, which is outplay. But yeah, Bori absolutely set him up and knock him down. I think when he finished with 10-1 and 3. Um, I can't remember the actual turning point of this game in particular, like what was really the, breaking it open. But when you're in a game where it's again 25-3 kills at 27 minutes, as we're watching, I think this is like close to the final march. Once you get to that, like it's really difficult to really do anything, and that's pretty much how the game went. They never had a lead. They were up like 10 to 15k gold at like the 20-minute mark. It was just, um, it was a stomp across the board. Sadly to say, we did see the Smolder at the end, like you say, get his stacks, and it looked kind of scary, a little scary at least for the side. Boomer, we had a really nice suppression there on the Tang, which is the only reason that kind of got scary. As much as I'd like to say it, I honestly would have loved the Skarner maybe because he had flash, flashing in instead of suppressing the Galio, suppressing one of the high damage dealers there, like the Saya or the J4 even. He's going to do more damage to Nexus. Just somebody that's like, when they're autoing the Nexus is going to be more meaningful. The Galio is going to like do one enhanced nice auto, and then it's going to be down for whatever amount of time, 6-7 seconds or whatever. Um, so I think that's what I would have loved to have seen. It's still a nice pick, and what almost was a nice base defense there, but it just wasn't enough. The 225 came too late at like the 27, 28-minute mark of the game.
Yeah, this I mean it was kind of the Victor Apple show, and he showed exactly why he picks that Sejuani top, but then afterwards like Bori just picked up what he started, and gets the 4 items in a relatively quick game, about 30 minutes, moderate, but Bori completely dominated the damage charts and everything else too. So oh yeah, yeah. Yeah. Victor Victor showed, and I think he even said it, that he specifically practiced like the Sejuani Gwen matchup a little bit, because he wasn't sure how that went. But once he got that first kill, like the Sejuani for a tank snowballs so incredibly hard. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. If you hit somebody in the middle of the snips, it procs their passive, which I think generates the healing. I'm not. Oh, yeah, yeah. That's fair. Mm. Mhm. I can see that. Yeah, he actually got hurt, nerfed this patch that we're currently on. Oh, like seeing Gwen Jungle with Ghost running at you? It feels like AP Garen a little bit. Mhm. Yes, it's 3, it's 3. Yeah. Mhm. Yep. I feel this frustration. Uh-huh. Yeah, I think Scorch I don't want to say like abandoned some of their thoughts, but they definitely had a lot more power picks in this draft. I mean, instead of focusing on the Syndra, this draft they B1'd a Mumu, which I know you're a big Amumu fan, and you like a lot of these junglers playing a Mumu. Um, fair, fair. You play a pretty mean Amumu too. Don't get me wrong. Hmm. I would agree with that. And we kind of seen that a little bit in the semifinal series when Sad Jellyfish prioritized the Echo Jungle all 3 games, and they could have potentially like that third game went to something else. But yeah, no, Scorch ends up be wanting the Amumu's, just a very good, just solid jungle pick. But I thought Boomer Squad's 1, 2, 3 really played around the Amumu quite well. I mean, you have Ezreal, Shyvana, LeBlanc. Scorch rounds it off with Jinx Braum, which I think Braum's a really key pickup here to try and negate a lot of the Ezreal and Shyvana's like poke damage. Plus, Braum passive is pretty respectful for locking down LeBlanc and Ezreal. Not the greatest, not point and click, but it's at least like good follow up CC after point and click that you can start to auto them while they're CC'd and it just snowballs onto it. Um, but we've seen Scorch in the second ban phase get rid of the Malphite, and the key one was Sejuani because I felt like they didn't want to see that again. And Boomer's trying to keep Ares off Cassante and Camille, which that might have been their second rotation ban all 3 games. No, second game they got rid of Yone. But I think having Ezreal, LeBlanc, and then getting rid of Camille was pretty clutch. Camille's kind of one of those champions that can lock down a lot of these blinkers and mobility champs. But Scorch pulling out the Mordekaiser. The Mord I thought was a super, super good pick. Kind of plays that Camille-esque lockdown, but it's kind of more so like a 1v1 type of lockdown instead of like you can't run away from my team. It's like you can't run away from me in general. And then Boomer Squad responded with Ornn, which we thought, okay, like Ornn's decent in the Mordekaiser, especially like talented Ornn players, but then the Gwen came in and we were thrown a little bit for a loop here. And it turns out Boomer Squad sent LeBlanc to support. So that was a unique pick that we hadn't seen all split, was LeBlanc support. And I know Chengi plays mid lane off roll a little bit. And I think even sub mid lane for a game or two. But yeah, and then Tang ends up taking the Ornn mid, which was not on my bingo card. Was watching 2 mage players end up playing an Ornn Galio lane. So, and I also thought that Ornn was interesting with Braum showing. I know Braum is traditionally like really good in the Ornn. You stop the ult quite easily on either the approach or the kickback. So, Braum value went up, but as you can kind of see going into this game, that Ares was definitely the one throwing the team on his back a little bit. He got first blood, and I think he ended up solo killing Victor like 2 or 3 times. So they prioritized grubs, and they did a lot of work through Ares in the top lane. But
Yeah, no, they
Bori
did.
again. What else is there to say about Bori? He played a lot of mages this split, and then shows up in the finals and plays no mages at all. So
Yeah. No, I mean, the big thing here, for me, like you said, is the draft was really, really good from Scorch. I pretty much like everything. There's not too many things where I go, I don't like it here. Um, if I'm looking at it, I guess maybe not Galio mid. Honestly,
that
like
was gonna be the thing I brought up.
I didn't think you need the Galio mid there. I would have just loved to see maybe an AD mid there, like if you can. Now they don't know that this is going to be something like an Ornn mid lane here. They're not aware of this. But even with that being said, I still don't agree with ever seeing triple AP on your top side of your map. You know, mid top jungle. You want to see some spread out in damage here. So I wasn't a big fan of that. But other than that, I think the draft was good. And even with that said, I still think Galio with like Amumu is still pretty nice, right? Like the follow up from Alti on top of the Curse of Sedamami is just can be absolutely gross if done properly, which can be done properly in a team setting. So The LeBlanc pick was really wild. Seeing that go support. Chengi did say that's something he had been practicing, playing over the years, and very comfortable with. But I wasn't surprised to see it start to kind of fall off and get shut down. But again, like the Braum just was such a good pick, but I feel like Calico wasn't comfortable on it. So like we couldn't really do as much to the Ezreal or the LeBlanc in the lane, and it's just kind of a jinx. So yeah, the Braum had really a lot of value in team fights, but it just didn't have the value in lane. So it was really weird situation for Braum and the whole situation, bot lane there. But something I'd like to highlight because it just popped up on my stuff was that Poke Archer flash there in the mid lane to save the Ornn was insane. Like what a play.
That was super clutch.
Yeah, when it looked like Scorch might be getting more advantages, that was kind of one of those moments where you look back at and you go, because this small little play happened, it kept the game from being snowballed in Scorch's advantage as heavily as maybe it could have been. Another thing to consider was turrets. Like, we constantly were seeing turrets fall early on from Scorch. Boomer was collecting them. That kept the gold also even though, like, we constantly see, like, the fights going over to the side of Scorch. So in that game, like, they had the scaling, they had the jinx, they had the setup, but they just needed to keep the snowball up when they had it. And some reason it just kept being stopped constantly.
Yeah, I just felt like Jinx didn't have access to do like meaningful damage. Like you're dealing with Shyvana, who's easily going to return the damage back to you. Pang, who got ahead and was this just big, fat, beefy tank. And Victor Apple, who's going to, Gwen is immune to everything like Boonstra wants to do. So it just felt like there was a lot of times Boonstra was just trying to hit the person close to him and didn't really have access to do damage or threaten Bori at all in these team fights.
Yeah, and Bori's positioning on this Ezreal was pretty immaculate most of the game.
Oh yeah.
But the big tide turning play is actually that Baron play, which is kind of funny that it happened twice in the series. It's such an NA Baron moments, but this time it didn't. It happened to Scorch instead of happening to Boomer Squad. Scorch get a really nice fight. I think it's around the 20-minute mark here, where they are able to catch both Poke Archer and Ting out, so the Ornn and Shyvana go down. But there's 3 left, and the 3 that are left are 3 damage dealers. So you're in a situation where now you can certainly try to do the Baron, but the Mordekaiser probably need to walk over immediately, and he didn't, and he was their most fed member. So they try to start with this Baron, and during this time you just see Boomer Squad trying to stall. They got to worry about Boonstra getting caught out here by Chengi, LeBlanc, and obviously Bori coming in as well, playing very safe on it. So what ends up happening is you just kind of see that's what happens. Chengi gets in, does some damage, scares him off. Victor upper flanks, and the fight just explodes from there. And that's your game breaking moment there for me. And it's such a funny thing, like I said, 2 such NA Barons. But at least in game one team was able to overcome their NA Baron, and Scorch was not able to overcome the loss of this Baron.
Yeah. Game was pretty even until then, and you've got Scorch sitting on 3 dragons. So the fact that you win a team fight, I agree. I think Ares needs to move over to this Baron, if anything, just to at least create space and presence. But Mordekaiser at that, like being 7-1, he's going to help shoot through this Baron quite quickly. I don't know if they even finish it. Like I don't think it's that much quicker, but instead of Bori going ahead and getting a couple of like Qs on the Boonstra and an auto or 2. Like, Bori's not eating forward into Ares, especially knowing Mordekaiser there has ult as well, because he wasn't part of the previous fight.
Yeah, and again, if Mordekaiser was there, I feel like the fight's so much different. Ares just needed to be there. And then you had another fight, which was around what would have been Soul Drake for Scorch, and again, another kind of game-breaking fight here. If they're able to acquire this Drake, like, the game is so much different as well. Like, I think the Ocean Soul on Jinx is just like, okay, good luck trying to actually get on top of Jinx and kill her with all this defense plus an Ocean Soul. But they blow everything on the LeBlanc, and I'm like, wait, LeBlanc is a problem, but not this much of a problem. You know, you have this Ezreal free firing constantly. You have this Gwen that even behind still is very impactful. Why are we blowing everything on the support LeBlanc here? And it results in them losing the fight. So every time that it feels like they got a moment, an opportunity for something positive, it just kept turning the other direction for them. And again, like, fights were back and forth a lot. Like, this game was certainly close all throughout. But I also think, for as good as Boonstra played throughout the playoffs, there's too many times on the Jinx as well. He's just like melee range in Gatling gun instead of in, you know, Jinx rocket form. And I feel like if he's in Jinx rocket form, it's also a different game too. Like, why are you autoing the Gwen at that Baron fight and you're not in rockets running away? You know, even if it lowers your DPS, it's safer. So, but like, again, so many turning points, and we're going to talk about the clip here where you have a nice turning point where finally something positive happens for Scorch once again. You get a kill onto Victor Apple from Boonstra. You get a nice pick onto the Ezreal in the blue side top quadrant by Blue Buff. And like, okay, now we've got the game turned around again. Drake, I think, was coming up at this point, and so we're going to try to fight the Drake after we get this nice play, get some gold back. And I feel like a similar thing happens where we just blow our stuff on the wrong targets once again. You know, like, Scorch is going to go in here, and I believe they try to do all the damage on the Poke Archer, who at this point was fairly tanky on the Shyvana.
Yeah.
And Mumu gets just a one-man ult. I think if maybe Mumu holds it and then tries for backline access on a Bori right afterwards, I think, again, the fight is so much cleaner. Instead, it's another cleanup play, and all the members on the side of Scorch are slowly whittled down once the main carriers are gone.
See, I think I might have said this going into this fight, looking it over. Like, you have 3 dragons, and I feel like you have a respectable scaling comp. We could argue who's scaling more. But you have Jinx, who is probably sitting on enough gold for IE here.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, IE plus Runins and then Kraken, like, you're going to find a way to get meaningful damage off. You know, Poke Archer's not going to itemize into too much armor there. And LeBlanc is just going to die the moment she dives in. Like, Rusty's going to press R, lock her down. And then there's the Jinx get excitement to even start off the team fight. Kind of what we've seen in a previous clip. But I didn't think they needed to really push the issue and fight this. Even if they know that Boomer Squad has to fight over this or they give you soul, there's a world where, like, Ares Boonstra could 2-man Baron and kind of fake the dragon fight as well. So I'd have been curious, like, to run that back with Jinx with IE and, like, let her have another 5 to 6 minutes of just uneventful scaling. Even potentially gets a Last Whisper, just to help punch through Tang a little bit.
Yeah.
But ultimately, yeah, they ended up pulling the trigger on Poke Archer, which I think is a valid target. Poke Archer is the only one that can really threaten Jinx in the back line with just a well-placed E. So, I mean, the fight, the person you engaged on made sense, but I just don't think they had the items to keep the fight going if it wasn't, like, just blow them up and then, you know, reset the fight.
Yeah, I think what you're saying too, but I still think, like, you want a better Curse of the Satamami than just one single target. I still feel that way. Like, you want to look for at least, let's just go with multiple members, just 2 at least, right? Like, every fight they won, there was a 2-man Curse of the Satamami. Locking down 2 individuals, can't do anything, they can't click abilities, that's just huge. Free firing Jinx, free firing, well, they're not free firing anybody else, but, you know, Tom walking up, whether he's dropping all or dropping a W for more CC chains, just means the fight is pretty much over with before any members get to do anything. When you're blowing everything onto Shyvana and then you're still getting hit as the Amumu, you're still getting hit as uh, the Bomber, the Galio, whoever's frontlining, and you're just getting free shot by Ezreal. I feel like that's just not very good in the sense of you're not that tanky into Ezreal because neither of them had any armor. They had just nothing but magic. I guess no, that's not completely true. Undying Despair does give armor, but like not a lot of armor in comparison. So,
No.
yeah, like you're just dying to this Ezreal at that point, even though you might kill the Shyvana, who ends up living, by the way. I think flashing out. The last fight was the very ending fight, which beautiful bandage toss by Rusty Crow gets in there onto the Ezreal. I think he actually had the highest value ulti that game, which was like a 3-man ult. But again, it felt like it was just a little too late at that point. The fight looks good, but then like after the Ezreal gets caught out initially, he's then untouched after that. Free Fires does his damage. Ezreal comes into a point where he's in like a weird choke, and Jinx is full HP, could just start free firing on this Ezreal, who by the way was about 70% HP. So like one W and a couple Jinx rockets probably kills Ezreal there with IE, right? Like you're just probably a dead Ezreal, and instead he's focusing the Shyvana. Probably trying to just get the reset. I understand because he probably was a little lower at that point, and that's who the Amumu was focusing on too. I believe it was Amumu. Might not have been Amumu, but regardless, it was one of the tanks. But like again, you can't do that. You can't let Ezreal just free fire, and then while you're hitting Shyvana, Ezreal's hitting you, right? And so Ezreal got away with just like murder the whole game. Even if Bori played exceptionally well, it's still a crime that it happened. So that's how your finals ended, and that's how we got the 3-0 though. Was just really good play from Boomer Squad and Bori, who got himself a nice MVP.
Yeah, I think Rusty on his last fight, I know he kind of turns back into Tang a little bit, but I think if he pushes Bori out of that fight, it gives Boonstra enough time to like chop down that big tank and get excited and then start to pop off the rest of the fight. But also like Rusty died with Locket up as well, so he died much quicker than I think he even thought he was going to.
Yeah, that's
But
unfortunate.
Ezreal's on 4 items, and then Ornn upgrades are already starting to come through as well. He already had 2 upgrades for his team
Yeah.
going into that fight. So it was a hard fought battle. Definitely the most even heel and just entertaining game. But I think as Boomer showed in the rest of the series, they team fight exceptionally well. Um,
Yep.
So, and then congrats. I know our finals MVP Bori, like he played exceptional on champions that he hasn't really showcased that much on for the whole split. He's been Seraphine, Ziggs, um, kind of duty, which I mean he's okay to play the AD carries. There's no slight at him, but he just kind of is one of those guys that plays whatever his team needs. And these 3 games, they put him on. They put a lot more of the pressure on him,
Yeah, absolutely.
and he definitely did it.
Yeah. But yeah, overall, I mean, it was a great split. It was fun to be a part of, fun to watch, fun to cast. Again, congratulations to Boomer Squad, a well-earned finals of the 2024 split victory here. Congratulations for Scorch for getting this far. I mean, it's never easy to make it to finals. They put their heart and soul into this, and I'm sure they're disappointed, but you've tasted what it is to be here. And so now, next split, what your eyes are set on. It's get back here, and next time you get this opportunity, take advantage of it. I know you guys are capable of doing so, but as of now, that's going to be the end of this year, and we're going to be getting ready for a 2024 winter split CLT. Pretty exciting, huh?
Yeah. I've seen a couple of teams have already signed up. Look very, very impressive. There's a lot of familiar names in there, but there's a couple of teams that've got some new names.
Yep.
So we'll see how this split goes and see what new blood we get in here.
Yeah, absolutely. So that'll be December 1st when we're going to be starting. We are going to have a break for Christmas. We'll discuss more, though, today in a bit. We actually have a Q&A session here in an hour. So I think me and CLT are going to go ahead and kind of wrap this up then. Thank you, everybody, for watching and supporting us. All split. Probably not doing another episode until the start of the new split. But you never know. If we decide to come up with something and cook, we'll let you know. But yeah, that's gonna be it for us. So thanks again, GG to everyone coming out, and thanks to CLT for coming along on this ride with me. And here's to more continued success for us on our journey, as well as any teams that compete next split. Any words for you, CLT, before we leave?
No, no, I appreciate the opportunity. Appreciate everybody listening into the streams, the casting. It's my first split casting, and Hairwiz was super nice to allow me to tag along and create some of these videos and overall just showcase the talent in this league. I think everybody has a lot of fun going back and looking at some of their highlight moments, and I was hoping that's what we could create and give people. So
Yeah, absolutely. All right then, guys. Well, GG, and y'all have a wonderful night. Me and CLT are out.